and you leave it here in the state of Texas, well, then the NFA doesn't apply to that. Of course, that got the federal government's shorts all in.
To the point where it's undetectable, what it does is it brings the report of the gun below the injury threshold.
Is you want people in the vicinity of gunfire to be able to hear the report of a firearm.
It has passed a bill to make it easier to own a gun silencer, more accurately called a suppressor.
But first on Fox, a new bill would make it easier to get silencers and suppressors for guns.
Gun enthusiasts hope lawmakers will pull the trigger and lift the ban on silencers.
Introduction to the issue. All right, let's dive into this hot topic buzzing around Washington gun law TV. The stage is set, and the spotlight is on the National Firearms Act and its relationship with suppressors. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, ugh, more legal mumbo-jumbo, hear us out because this is some serious stuff. Washington Gun Law TV, hosted by none other than President William Kirk, yep, he's a big deal, kicks off this discussion with a bang. They're throwing down the gauntlet and questioning the constitutionality of the NFA. And what's got them fired up? Well, it's those nifty little gadgets called suppressors. Now, you might be wondering, what's the big deal with suppressors? Well, hold on to your hats, because Texas is about to shake things up. You see, Texas, being Texas, decided to take matters into its own hands. They passed a law that basically says, hey, if you make a suppressor in Texas and keep it here, Uncle Sam can't touch it. Yep, they're giving the feds the old Texas two-step. But wait, it gets juicier. This isn't just a Lone Star showdown. This is shaping up to be a full-blown legal rumble. Texas isn't backing down, and they're not alone. There's talk of a larger movement brewing, with folks from all over gearing up to challenge the NFA on constitutional grounds.
And you leave it here in the state of Texas, well, then the NFA doesn't apply to that. Of course, that got the federal government's shorts all in.
Reduce the noise of a gunshot. They bring the noise down to safer levels from a hearing conservation perspective.
All of those little limitations there, that they reside in Texas, they're going to keep it in Texas, it's going to be manufactured in Texas.
Is gaining some traction in Congress that would make it easier to buy gun silencers or suppressors for those weapons.
Now we know what you're thinking. Why should we care about some legal squabble over suppressors? Well, let's break it down for you. This isn't just about fancy gun accessories. This is about rights, freedoms, and the good old American way. If Texas can pull this off, it could set a precedent that sends shockwaves through the legal world. It could mean a whole new ballgame for gun laws across the country. So whether you're a gun enthusiast, a constitutional scholar, or just someone who likes to keep an eye on the latest drama, this showdown is one you won't want to miss. So grab some popcorn and sit back. Let's see how this Texas-sized showdown unfolds. Texas law and federal response. Things are heating up in the Lone Star State. Texas came out swinging with a bold move. They passed a law giving the old heave-ho to federal regulations on suppressors. Basically, if you make a suppressor in Texas and keep it there, Uncle Sam's got no say in the matter. Talk about flexing those state rights. But you know the saying, you mess with the bull, you get the horns? Well, Texas certainly got the federal government's attention with this one. The ATF wasn't too pleased. They fired back, waving the big old rule book and saying, hold up, Texas, you can't just go rogue on federal firearms laws like that. And just like that, we've got ourselves a showdown. Texas versus the feds in a legal battle for the ages. They're duking it out in court, with Texas leading the charge in a case known as Paxton versus DeBack. It's like a Wild West showdown, but instead of gunslingers, we've got lawyers slinging legal arguments left and right. At the heart of it all is a fundamental question. Who gets to call the shots when it comes to gun laws? Texas is making a bold stand for state sovereignty, while the federal government is digging in its heels, insisting on its authority to regulate firearms nationwide. It's a clash of titans, with high stakes for both sides. If Texas prevails, it could set a precedent that shakes up the whole system. But if the feds come out on top, it could mean a major blow to states' rights.
Lawmakers are considering several changes to gun laws, including making these much easier to get. Some people call these a silencer.
The government is interfering with me being able to get a suppressor by delaying.
Law about 3 years ago that basically said, hey, if you make and manufacture a suppressor here in the state of Texas.
To the point where it's undetectable, what it does is it brings the report of the gun below the injury threshold.
Actually directed by the Texas state legislature to challenge and to find a way to uphold this law.
The Lone Star State is locked and loaded, and they're not backing down without a fight. It's Texas versus the feds, and only time will tell who comes out on top in this high-stakes legal duel. Paxton versus DeBack. Alright folks, let's zoom in on the legal battlefield known as Paxton versus DeBack. This ain't your average courtroom drama, this is a showdown of epic proportions. The lawsuit starts off with a bang, making its way to the Fifth Circuit after the trial court gave it the old boot. Why? Well, the court said the plaintiffs didn't have enough skin in the game, citing a lack of standing. Translation, they didn't show enough evidence that they were directly affected by the law to have a dog in this fight. But don't count Texas out just yet. They're not backing down without a fight, and they've got some serious legal firepower on their side. The arguments are flying fast and furious, with both sides duking it out over whether the plaintiffs really got a raw deal and if Texas has a legitimate beef with federal regulations. On one side of the ring, you've got Texas, arguing that they've got a horse in this race because their citizens' rights are being trampled on by federal overreach. They're waving the flag of state sovereignty, saying, hey, we've got a right to govern ourselves, thank you very much.
Where we're going through and trying to legalize it so that suppressors can be legal for ownership and for hunting in all 50 states.
Talking about is the National Firearms Act, and in particular, suppressors.
Is you want people in the vicinity of gunfire to be able to hear the report of a firearm.
Senator Tom Tillis says this is to protect people's hearing, but gun control groups, I'd imagine, are very much against this.
On the other side, you've got the federal government, represented by the ATF. They're sticking to their guns, pun intended, arguing that Texas is overstepping its bounds and causing chaos in the legal landscape. It's a classic clash of principles, state rights versus federal authority. And let us tell you, the tension in the courtroom is so thick you could cut it with a knife. So what's going to happen next? Well, that's anybody's guess. But one thing's for sure, this legal battle isn't over till the fat lady sings. So grab your gavel and settle in, because things are about to get real interesting in Paxton versus DeBack. Constitutional arguments. Alright, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the constitutional arguments and public perception surrounding suppressors. Strap in, because we're about to unpack some serious stuff. First off, we've got folks waving the Constitution around like it's the hottest ticket in town, arguing that the National Firearms Act regulations on suppressors are about as constitutional as a square peg in a round hole. They're pointing to changes in public perception and the evolution of suppressor use to make their case. Back in the day, suppressors might have been seen as tools of the trade for shady characters, but nowadays, they're more like the Swiss Army knives of the shooting world. From reducing noise at the range to making hunting trips more ear-friendly, suppressors are getting a serious image makeover. But it's not just about perception. There are some serious health benefits at play too. Cue the Center for Disease Control, swooping in like a superhero to endorse suppressors as the ultimate noise control measure. Turns out, these bad boys aren't just for keeping things quiet, they're also saving ears left and right. And let's be real, who doesn't want to protect their precious hearing?
Suppressed firearms have the risk that both recreational shooters and hunters have to.
Because of shooting deer with a rifle.
Things like tinnitus, which is ringing in your ears, and noise-induced hearing loss as a result of exposure to loud noises.
The State House still has to vote on the bill. 9 on your side's Craig Smith looked into how much difference a suppressor makes.
And speaking of public perception, let's talk about the seismic shift happening across the country. With 42 states jumping on the suppressor bandwagon for sporting and hunting purposes, it's clear that these little gadgets are going mainstream faster than you can say bang. From target practice to bagging big game, suppressors are becoming as common as camouflage on a hunting trip. So what does all this mean for the legal landscape? Well, it's like watching a game of constitutional chess unfold. With public opinion shifting and health benefits stacking up, the arguments against NFA regulations are gaining serious traction. It's a brave new world out there, folks, and suppressors are leading the charge into uncharted territory. So whether you're a Second Amendment enthusiast, a health-conscious shooter, or just someone who appreciates a good old-fashioned debate, one thing's for sure, the suppressor saga is far from over. We're in for one heck of a ride.
About safety. It's about hearing protection. It's a health issue, frankly, for me.
It has passed a bill to make it easier to own a gun silencer, more accurately called a suppressor.
Health problem. any actual research into hearing problems with gun owners?
Are in place for a reason, but there are some that out there that really do say that hearing protection does need to be taken into consideration.
Implications and future. Let's take a look into the crystal ball and see what the future holds for NFA litigation. Spoiler alert, it's going to be a wild ride. First up, we've got the potential broader implications of the lawsuit. This isn't just about Texas flexing its legal muscles, it's about sparking a movement. Think of it as the shot heard round the legal world, with states across the country taking notice and gearing up to challenge the NFA. If Texas can pull this off, it could open the floodgates for similar challenges, leading to a major shakeup in gun laws nationwide. But what does that mean for the future of NFA litigation? Well, it's like trying to predict the weather in Texas. Unpredictable, but bound to be interesting. With constitutional arguments gaining steam and public attitudes shifting in favor of suppressors, the stage is set for some serious legal showdowns.
Components will come from the state of Texas, the suppressor will remain in the state of Texas and will never be transferred to another person.
Gun enthusiasts hope lawmakers will pull the trigger and lift the ban on silencers.
People with their hearing, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to have a suppressor on a rifle.
But first on Fox, a new bill would make it easier to get silencers and suppressors for guns.
We could see a gradual erosion of the NFA, with courts chipping away at its foundation bit by bit. Or, dare we say it, we might even witness the ultimate abolition of the NFA altogether. Now, before you start stocking up on celebratory fireworks, let's not forget the importance of knowing and understanding firearm laws. With great firepower comes great responsibility, after all. It's crucial for gun owners to stay informed about the ever-evolving legal landscape, ensuring they stay on the right side of the law and uphold their rights responsibly. So whether you're a legal eagle keeping tabs on the latest court cases, or just a curious bystander watching the drama unfold, one thing's for sure: the future of NFA litigation is anything but dull. So buckle up, stay informed, and get ready for a legal roller coaster ride like no other. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.